Your life experience, good or bad, is a gift when you share it with others. At Taxi Chronicles, we allow real riders with real stories to share their gift. So hopefully this episode will intrigue, enhance or inspire you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Morning. Yes, we're back with another rider, another episode. Today we're honoured to have a TV advertising expert, and he's going to talk about how he got into the industry, what it's like, responsibilities, roles, and just generally what motivates him. So nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Okay. It's good to be here.
So tell us, first of all, what kind of child were you when you was in school?
I feel like I was a pretty well-behaved child. I was a bit hyperactive when I was younger, as all kids are, I suppose. I grew up in West London, in Brentford, and I had a very kind of privileged childhood, I suppose. I went to a nice school, had a nice upbringing, had great parents.
Were you introvert, extrovert?
Much so an extrovert. I think it was it was very much my style, and I've probably grown out of that the older that I've got, really.
They say we become more conservative as we get older.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite true. Yeah, I'm in my early 30s now, so I've definitely calmed down over the years.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's more conservative or we just run out of steam. We're running out of steam. So when did you realise that you wanted to be in the profession you were in?
Well, it's funny, really. I, as I said, I kind of went through school, went into sixth form and completed my A-levels and got kind of average results, really. I was a straight C student.
What subjects did you do?
I studied history, geography and sports science. Okay. All of which are, I find really interesting subjects, and they were the main reason that I took them, but they were kind of fairly difficult and in-depth subjects as well, so I could have chosen something maybe a little bit easier that might have got me better grades, but in the end it was more about, what interested me, and, if that meant that, there was more work involved, then that was kind of fine on my part, but, graduated, got my A-levels, and then I didn't really know what to do with my kind of life, and I suppose I was kind of pressured into going to university like most of my colleagues and like most of my peers at school. Ended up going to Sheffield Hallam University, where I studied business management, which was an extremely boring course, which took 3 years. And then, I kind of...
Would you do that? Would you have chosen that route of education again?
No. I wouldn't have done, and the main reason for that is that, after I finished university, it was a fantastic life experience, just moving out of your parents' home when you're 18 into a completely new city, being responsible for yourself, really, and like how you live your life. And it taught me, gave me a lot of like life lessons, and how to manage money, how to manage myself, getting up for all these lessons and seminars that I'm paying thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for, and it really did me good. But on the other hand, in terms of would I do it all again or would I change it, if I went back, then I probably would change it, and the answer is I probably wouldn't have gone to university
at all.
No.
Really? Okay.
And I think the main reason for that is in my kind of industry in advertising, especially in visual effects, which is my kind of specialty. It doesn't really, although it's seen as quite like a privileged kind of industry where, it's mostly, white privileged kids, basically, which you'll find everywhere. You don't need a degree. Everybody starts at the bottom, so it doesn't matter who your parents are or what degree you've got. You always start as what's called a runner. So you get people cups of tea, lunches, go and do some photocopying, do some cleaning. Doesn't really matter what it is, but I suppose it's like, drumming back into you, really, that everybody starts at the same role, and there's no kind of bias, really, in terms of how quickly you can progress up the ladder. So that was kind of really quite humbling for me that, especially as both of my parents worked in that industry as well, so that was my kind of in really, and maybe subconsciously I felt that I shouldn't be doing this, I should be going up higher, I've got a degree. But actually it taught me a lot, it taught me a lot about the industry and a lot about how advertising works and the kind of the infrastructure of visual effects specifically.
In the military, in the Marines, we call that pond life. You're at that pond, you're lower than pond life. So what I ask you is, how long were you lower than pond life in that industry?
I would say a couple of years.
So you've got to have some endurance.
You do. It's more of a test of whether you really want it, because the pay is absolutely terrible. So when I was back in 2011, I was taking home about £850 after tax a month, and we all know how expensive rent is in London and travel, etc. And so it is a real test of your kind of resolve and like how much you want the job. But if you continue and you impress people and you persevere, you kind of move up the ranks a bit. And that's kind of what happened to me. I went from being a runner, getting people cups of tea, to working in what's called the machine room, which is where adverts were kind of getting worked on by the artists on the computers, we would lay off what's called masters onto tape, and those tapes would then be sent to the TV stations to be played out onto TV, which has all changed now as it's all digital. We don't use tapes anymore, but I did that for a couple of years, and then kind of used those couple of years to really think about what I wanted to do specifically in visual effects, which I realised was to go into kind of TV production, and that's kind of what I do to this day.
Do you see when you upload? I'm just thinking digitally. Does it go to a cloud and someone up and downloads it on the other side or something?
Exactly, yeah. So these days we'll finish something up at the facility where I work. We'll give it like a QC, a quality check, to make sure everything's okay with it. It will then just be sent directly to Channel 4 or to ITV or wherever it's being sent out to, and distributed that way. Yeah, all on the cloud.
Okay, that's good. So what does the future hold for you?
That's a good question, really. Like I've kind of 6-7 years qualified producer now, and I currently work for a small startup after many years in working for some of the biggest names really in advertising. So it's an interesting question, to be honest. It's in terms of my progression of my career, that's kind of you don't really move anywhere else. It's more about venturing or dipping your toe into kind of management or starting something yourself, really. And for me, I'm not sure that's the right route for me, but the beauty of advertising is it's never too late to to learn another discipline and get involved in other areas, really. But it's absolutely fantastic fun. Like, I'd recommend it to anyone that is thinking about getting involved in it, because the diversity of people is so great. There's so many different weird and wonderful characters, and it's real good fun.
I suppose you would need that, because the more diverse, the more audience you can reach.
I think so. Yeah, I think like in recent times, in the last few years especially, it's the industry as a whole has really tried to kind of be more inclusive, really. As I said previously earlier in the conversation, that while it used to be just full of white privileged kids, but now it's probably opened up the doors to really understand how you get into visual effects, because it's not like it's just not very easy to kind of industry to get yourself in, especially at a young age, because you don't really do. There's like courses you can do to kind of get that understanding under your belt, but to get your foot through the door, it's historically been through parents or friends of your parents and things like that. So it's very much changing year on year for the better, I think.
So the visual effects, that's all done on computer?
Yeah.
Is it like the green screen thing?
Exactly, yeah. So there's all sorts of kind of visual effects that we do. Once a production company and a director has shot something on camera, and when I say on film, I mean like just they've gone away and filmed something. Nowadays, nobody uses film anymore. It's all shot digitally, as you would imagine. Once that's finished, it goes to an editor, which we offer editing services as well, so that it gets cut into an edit. And then once that director is happy with that edit, we then get all of the shots in that edit, and then we have a discussion about what is needed on our side, in terms of, if there's if we're going over Waterloo Bridge at the moment, if we wanted to replace the background of everything that we see.
Like Victorian Britain or something.
Well, exactly. It can be anything, and so what they would do, that's a good example. So, for example, if we see our character walking along the bridge dressed as such, but when the background needed to be, a 19th century skyline, then we could put that in for sure.
I've only found out about green screen the other day. It says a podcast. I was on a Zoom call, and I thought, let me change. It said green screen, and I didn't. I ordered, funnily enough, a background, one of those background things that sits on a tripod behind you when you're sitting, and it was green or blue.
Yeah.
Why do they give me these funky colours? You could have just given me black. But anyway, that shows how much I know. So when I was clicking on the Zoom call, it's a background, so I normally change it to like do my own logo or taxichronicles.
Yeah.
But then something said press green screen, and it looked like I was in some LA beach mansion, Hollywood mansion.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, look at this. But the funny thing was, because it was Zoom, there's 6 of us on the Zoom.
Yeah.
It started to freeze. But
Right.
when there's 4 or 5,
it's okay.
It's okay. So I'm thinking, I don't know if this is your department. Is that my data service?
Could be a lot of things. Yeah, it'd probably just be the amount of bandwidth that it's trying to bounce between the more people using something that's using more processing power, then the more it will struggle with. But yeah, exactly. It's a good example. You can get green, you can get blue, you can get yellow. The main reason for the changes is green is always the industry standard, because the way that the computer works out the algorithm is it basically finds all of that green color in the frame, and then it will latch onto it, and it will tell those pixels to change to whatever I'm inputting it to change it to. In your case, New York penthouse.
Yeah.
The reason it's green is because not many people wear green. It's the least popular color. So, like if you were to wear like a green T-shirt and the green background, you would look almost invisible, because your front would be changed as well. So in the way that if you wanted to wear green, someone would put a blue screen behind you rather than green. That's the way that it works.
Well, you could do that and just be a talking head.
You could indeed. If you really wanted to mess them up, mess your friends up, yeah.
Okay. So what have you learned that you wish you knew when you started in this industry?
I suppose just to be just confident, and just if there's ever any kind of opportunity to progress your knowledge and learn something new or try something new, just go and just jump in with both feet. Because looking back at 10 years, when I look at those opportunities that I was either kind of I'm too tired, or I don't really fancy that, and I'd rather just go home, it's just that you kind of kick yourself to go, I wish I'd done that. Because even though it might not have led to anything, I might have learned something and found out something that would really do me well in future life. And the older you get, the more you realise you should have just snatched those opportunities with both hands, really.
Yeah, never let opportunities for your finger.
No, exactly. So I don't take them for granted either, and you never know what the future brings. So that would be my advice, is just to try everything really and get involved.
I understand. What kind of personality do you think a person needs to do your job?
I suppose they need to be kind of approachable, organised, kind of friendly. A lot of the time we are kind of the middle men and women between the client, who can be very demanding in some respects, and our artists, so we have to kind of protect them from all of the unreasonable and ridiculous requests we get from the client that's kind of outside of the brief of what we agreed, but still kind of deliver something on brief that the client's happy with. So it can be quite a tricky situation that you're kind of put in a lot of the time. So it's just about, you know, keeping a cool head really, and just biting your lip a lot of the time, because it's hilarious some of the stuff you hear.
What's the most ridiculous thing where you just thought, where's this person coming from, that you've been asked to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time the funniest feedback comes from these kind of directors, because nearly all of them are on the spectrum. So it's like, you know, you'll agree, let's say you'll agree to, I don't know, you'll kind of budget the work, and you'll go, right, this shot's going to take 3 weeks, and we're on Waterloo Bridge and we're going to replace the background. Yeah, okay, that's what we're doing. Then like 2 days before delivery, someone will go, do you know what will really make this shot? What? Is if we had like a giraffe just walking in, like from the left-hand screen, just walking past all the people on the bridge. What are you talking about? One, that narratively it doesn't make any sense. Two, this is supposed to be Victorian Britain. Why would there be a giraffe there? And it's like, you know, you think that they're joking, but they're not. You know, they're just kind of, well, why can't we do it? It's like, well, we deliver the job tomorrow, and it goes on TV the next day. So I can't just like get a giraffe out of thin air and put it on a, you know, if you'd have asked me that 3-4 weeks ago, yeah, we could look into it. But, you know, it's just about, I suppose that comes with, you know, not understanding the process or not caring, but either way it doesn't set like a good example for me to, like, you know, go out of my way in the future to help that person.
You've been a great guest. 2 questions, last question.
Sure.
Does a green screen allow moving things?
Yes.
So when you said that giraffe,
yes,
it made me think, could a giraffe be walking on a green screen?
You could.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could do it one or two ways. You could either film that giraffe separately somewhere else on a green screen, and then we could take that giraffe and what we call composite it into the bridge.
Like superimpose.
Exactly, yeah. Or these days, which is quite common, is we just do the whole thing in CG, computer graphics. So most of the stuff that you'll see online these days where you're thinking, oh, that animal can't do that, is probably because it's not real. And the quality of visual effects is so high these days that you will struggle to tell the difference.
Okay.
It's so good, yeah.
You become a believer. I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to send you a few examples.
I hear you. The last question is, what's the impact you want to have on the world?
It's a difficult question to answer, really. You know, as I said, I've kind of gone through my whole life and career, really, and followed in my parents' footsteps, I suppose. But in terms of what impact I'd like is just to, I don't know, really, just to have fun and live life to the fullest, really, and just not try to aim too high. You know, I think there's a lot of pressure on people, especially young people these days, to kind of, you know, reach the stars, when I think it's more about finding something that you get a lot of enjoyment out of, and just, you know, really focus on that, and, you know, what other benefits come with it, that's an added bonus, but it's more about being happy than anything.
I just realised there's 2 quick questions I need to ask for the younger listeners.
Sure.
If they are interested in this industry and they want to get work experience, what companies are they looking to apply to?
So recently, when I talk more about you know, it being more accessible to young people, there's a company called Access VFX, and that would be an excellent place to start. It's a really good resource pool for finding out how you get into the industry and what you need to do to be able to get your foot through the door. In addition to that, you can always kind of get in contact with post-production houses directly, and just email their HR to see if they can do some work experience as a runner or something similar. But I would certainly say Access VFX gives them a lot more information, and that's where they should go for sure.
And a bit of a financial question. You spoke about the £800 in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
After that, does it pay off?
It does pay off. It's funny. It's probably for the first 5 years of your career, it's fairly mediocre in terms of the pay. But as soon as you As soon as you kind of start running your own jobs and producing your own jobs, it can quickly become quite lucrative. My pay kind of, I suppose, from some years to years almost doubled from what it was, previously, just by moving around to different companies. So it all pays off in the end. I think, like everything in every career, the more hard work you put in at the start, the faster that you'll get to the top. So yeah, it does pay off, but it's more than just the money, though. It's more about the enjoyment that you get out of it. For me, it's like I feel really lucky to be able to do my job every day and really enjoy what I kind of deliver. 3, 4, sometimes 6 weeks later after something's been shot on camera, to seeing it on TV, it's a really nice feeling.
I understand. Well, thanks a lot for that.
No problem.
And we wish you well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We hope you liked that Taxi Chronicles interview. Don't forget to share and subscribe to get the latest episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economies and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. Listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. British Standard Time.